Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a weekly brain training show where you remember to think about the big things in the world for a bit. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
What are we talking about this week?
Tradition.
Tradition. I always just say the word afterwards. We just say the word a few times.
Yeah, you gotta like sit with it for a moment. Tradition.
It's the 11th of May, and we're recording this just in time for Christmas, because that's the main thing that I think about when I think about tradition. But, it seemed like an easy one. We could talk about scientific traditions. I think I'm going to be banging on about music-related stuff again. So
surely not. You bang on about music. Right. Can't believe
Do you know what,
it.
Ivanka?
What?
I haven't recorded anything new since we started this podcast.
Is that bad?
Which is 25 weeks in, which is half a year I haven't recorded a song. It's because I just don't want to, it's like, I don't want to jump in because it'll consume me for like 2 or 3 days to like make a song. And I just I'm scared, but I need to get in there. I need to do something. I've got this whole studio. Have you got any subjects?
Loads really. There's lots of
headlines,
nasty tradition-y bits like women's equality.
Yes,
that's a big one. Things that are really foul, like female genital mutilation, like just loads of bad things associated with tradition. And but we like to make traditions. Families say, let's make this a tradition, shall we? And traditionally this is what we do. So I think that there's sort of tradition feels like something to me that is well intentioned but often evil. There you go.
First, let's have a bit of casual chit-chat.
Yeah.
Have you got any stories for the week?
Stories for the week are a bit camping, but we only did daytime camping. Our friends were camping, so we went to visit them for the day because they didn't allow dogs. And we thought, you can't go camping and not take your dog. You can go to a boutique hotel and not take your dog, but to a field? No. That just seems ridiculous. Poor dog going off to kennels just so that we could go camping. No. So we went to visit our friends and the children played and we ate picnicky food and tried to fly a kite, that kind of thing. That was a lot of fun. And I bought...
like a bought kite? Was it a big one? Was it a stunt kite?
Well, what happened was that last year or so, nursery had some freebies because they get sent free samples of a pretty rubbish kite that still flew, but you could see that our child was totally blown away by the fact that she was standing in a field holding a kite that was flying. So being, indulgent parents, we immediately were like, well, we must get her a cool kite then, which we did. And this was the first time we'd flown it.
Was it with two handles?
No. She's only little. We don't want her flying away.
I think I had a double-handed kite for a bit. But yeah,
I think you need some skills.
Die very quickly, don't they?
I went to university with somebody who was very cool, but he broke his ankle because a kite lifted him up and dropped him. And I told him that was pretty lame. I was like, don't tell anyone that.
Well, that was a poor choice of words.
Well, that is true.
Someone's foot's in their mouth.
The best puns are the accidental ones. I did my coaching thing.
It was week 2,
was it? It was week 2. Week 2 of my government coaching on user research thing. I do enjoy it. I think it's my new thing. So if anyone needs any user research coaching, give us a ring. Send me an email and I'll send you my price list.
Yeah, price on request.
But I really enjoyed it. I found this second one more tiring because I'd obviously sort of teed them up last time, and this time we were doing analysis. And so this time, and we got actual data. And one of the things about user research, which on the subject, I know we're talking about traditions and not mystery, but on the subject of last week's topic, where coming to conclusions about things or wading through qualitative data until you've come to some findings feels like well, it is very tiring, and it feels like you're living in chaos because you just don't know what you don't know, and I have to keep doing this until patterns emerge. You've got to turn it into a story, and turning something into a story is quite hard, especially like within the pressures of a commercial project that's only got, you've got one day, analyse, boom. So
it reminds me of you're second only to Joss Whedon talking about writing the Avengers and having just walls full of post-it notes, and how can I make sure every character gets used, and how do we, like a sort of crazy person's thing, just trying to solve it like an equation.
Well, one of the people asked me, he goes, how do you know you're done? And I was like, well, you're done when you've accounted for every single post-it note. It's like, that's when you're done. It's like, does the story make sense? If people challenge it, can you defend it? Can you answer questions about it? And all those funny random little post-it notes, have you accounted for why they got made and what you're going to do with them? Rather than, because I showed them last week very briefly, there's a little comic strip of a sort of scientist sitting on a sitting in a lab, pushing a couple of things over the desk, and like, I don't need those findings. It's like, that's the risk when people are analysing anything, and it's like, this piece of information doesn't fit with the story that I want to tell, so I'm going to put it in the bin. So it's a bit of chatting about bias. I bought the child some new shoes.
Well, that's too boring for the podcast.
It is not boring.
It's
really exciting. She's got silver sandals, and the test that she decided to check them out when we went to the shoe shop was to skip around the shoe shop in circles, checking if you could skip in them, because that was her test, and then whether you could run in them. And I'm
going to do that next time.
That's what I can recommend to everybody, that when you're trying on some shoes, run round the shoe shop and then skip round the shoe shop. Just check if they work.
You're going on holiday?
Yeah. Well, when I say holiday, I'm going to my second home. I'm going
literal second home rather than, this is our second home. We're always here.
Exactly. I'm going to Croatia land. And I'm going to see all the work that the builders have been doing. I'm very, very, very excited. I have bought some material for some upcycling of old wardrobes. I have got to persuade Nick that there is room for the sewing machine in the van. I was like, do you really need that? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. I'm not hand stitching this. Yes, I'm very, very, very excited. I'm excited to go paddle boarding. I'm excited to go swimming in the sea. I'm excited to see the loquat trees, the famous loquat trees. In fact, there might be fruits on them now. I might be able to have a go at making some jam. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. How was your week, Michael?
I'm going on holiday next week as well. I read an interesting article about neutral face expressions, and about how, depending on your childhood and traumas, you interpret neutral facial expressions as angry or sort of upset, whereas people that have had a nice childhood just see them as neutral.
Really?
It's good, isn't it? It's interesting. So a lot of the time, like, Sharon's got a neutral face. Sometimes I'm like, oh no, she's really cross with me. She's really angry with me. And I've just realised, no, that's because when I was young, that's what that probably meant. But now it just means that's just my face.
That's just
I'm not smiling.
My resting face.
I thought that was quite interesting.
That is interesting.
I went to a canal cavalcade. Briefly.
What's that?
Along the canal near Paddington Basin, there was loads and loads of canal boats and loads of little stalls and things last week. And we just walked down there, had an ice cream.
Ooh.
I had an ice cream, that was nice. We impulse purchased some sort of like fold-out apple fruit bowl thing. And, there was a very sunny, hot day. Also, Sharon has been bullying me about my intrusive R's. So I was like, how do I get this data on here? She's like, there's no R in data. Data on. I'm like, all right, give it a break. So I'm being schooled by an Italian about my inappropriate injection of the letter R in between certain words. So,
I'm still trying to picture this fold-up apple bowl.
It was one of those things where they demo it and it's like, oh, it's really cool. And then you open yours and you're like, it's a bit, I can't quite get it to look like the guy made it look. No, it's like it was kind of a flat piece of wood kind of cut like in a sort of spiral into a sort of apple shape so that you could sort of like pull it outwards and it would kind of like expand into a fruit bowl.
I think you should put a picture of it on Instagram. I shall now be looking out for your intrusive R's as well.
Well, please do. And also, yeah, I'm going on holiday. Woo! We're going to Greece for like 8 days or something. And we're just going to a very nice hotel on the beach. So looking forward to that. So I've got one more day of work, I've got to edit this podcast and last week's all today and try and get those done so that I can go and am I going to be bored out of my brain on the beach? I was just thinking about myself. I keep watching these Alain de Botton type things about the problem is the thing that doesn't change when you go on holiday
is you.
You're still bringing yourself, and there's no escaping it. And then I saw that another thing about like why people believe that they have to go on holidays to improve things, but how either it will just become normalized after a while, or just being included in your. You get the new thing and now that's just in your box of normal repetitive life. And then so you go on holiday or you move to another country but eventually that you get into a routine there and it's always the same. And so this idea that you have to kind of, that you always think something external will change things, but the fact is it always just gets kind of normalised into your normal box. So it always has to come from within you. But I just think it'll be nice to have a bit of mental space and not have to go to work every day.
I think it's nice to have some sunshine. It's nice to have some seaside, though I have seaside at home, but it's not quite the same. I only live by the sea. I enjoy going away. I enjoy the change of scenery. Because mine's not really, well, it obviously is a holiday, but we never really don't work at all.
If you had that thing, it was like you're on holiday and you're kind of fancy free, and then suddenly your phone rings and someone wants to talk to you about the hosting or something, or like they've got some sort of feedback on some sort of issue with a website or something, like you're like, fuck you for making me think about this meaningless bullshit when I'm on holiday. So now I'm like fucking 100% do not attempt to talk to me about anything to do with work. Don't even hint at it. If I'm on holiday, I'm on holiday. Don't come near me with your bullshit.
My life's not really not that we can never switch off or any of that nonsense. I read an interesting thing, a slight tangent. Read an interesting thing which suggests like a day a week with no devices, which I'm tempted to institute. But saying all that, so when we go away, the pace changes. I don't understand how life is so hectic here, and then we go there and we still work, we still we've got an office, we've got internet, we keep an eye on things, but somehow it's just all a bit more chilled. People have naps after lunch, always, that kind of thing. They just so we spend, it's just not, there's fewer distractions perhaps, we don't have I don't know, anyway. I think because of what we do, the way we earn a living, we're always dipping into things, and I like being able to do things from anywhere. That's one of the things I'm trying to encourage in my money earning life. So being able to relocate, look at tangerine trees and loquats instead of seagulls. The seagulls are much smaller on our island in Croatia. The Brighton ones are quite enormous.
I think there's something my next like milestone of employment is got to be like I'm tired of this. You've got to be in this place between these hours, no matter how productive it is or isn't. Like I'd quite like to get off that kind of like just being available in a room is just doing my head in. I want to be able to. I want to be able to say, look, I'll deliver this to you at this point by this time, and I'll get it done. And however it needs to happen, rather than I will do day. I want to kind of get more jobs like that somehow. Well, that means finding clients and dealing with all that stuff.
My brother and I bumped into one of his friends this week, and he has changed his. I think his mother died recently, like in the last 2 or 3 years, and it made him have a rethink. And so he's changed the way he works. So he's referring to it now as special projects. I only do special projects. I don't do contracts. I don't freelance anymore. I just take on a project that I that I want to do with people that I want to work with. I do it, I deliver it, and then I wait for the next one.
Yeah.
But that is a very privileged position to be in, really, to be able to. But
you're getting older.
Yeah.
Older.
We're all getting older. It gets a bit easier.
I deserve it. Tradition is a warm blanket. It's sort of like a warm word, but it's used to cover up inflexibility, and it's used to, as you've sort of hinted at, it's used to kind of like mask a lot of evils in the world.
It is.
Something tradition, like what is it? How does something become a tradition?
I suppose it becomes a tradition in the. Is that a rhetorical question? Like, becomes a tradition. There's me answering questions that perhaps are just out there. I think a tradition becomes a tradition because people just do the same thing over and over without questioning it. Which is probably, I've never said that out loud, but actually I think that's probably why I have such a problem with tradition.
But people like it. Like, people do it because they like it.
It's comforting. Yeah. It's like we know what we're doing. We know how this story ends. There's no mystery. There's no tension. Except that then the tradition example that you use, like Christmas, you know, everybody's like, oh, traditionally we all get together at Christmas and get really stressed and spend loads of money and nobody really enjoys themselves. But, you know, we upheld the tradition. It was like, well, why did you do that? What is the point? You know, my family traditionally doesn't put that pressure on ourselves. And, you know, we still love each other and see each other and talk to each other and help each other out. But we don't traditionally get together on certain dates and wind each other up and spend money we don't have.
Well, yeah, like this is something that sort of infuriates me a bit about. I think we sort of broken the traditions. They just got like destroyed like recently. But it's always been a very specific Christmas routine that we do this, and like always a lot of kind of pride or like taken in. The Christmas tree goes up on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And it comes down on the 6th. And it's like, but everyone else is doing theirs like at the start of December. It's nice because you get to be sort of Christmassy for longer. I'm like, no, the tradition must not be argued with. And I just find that, like, can't we invent some new traditions? Why can we only do the old ones? Like, can we not, let's have a little bit of spring cleaning sometimes and go, is this actually benefiting us in any way? Or is it just a bit horrible?
I think tradition is bullshit.
Yeah, it is bullshit, really, isn't it?
It's that whole, you know, definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I mean, I know in tradition everyone expects the same result, but the problem is it's not even that they expect the same result. They do expect a different. They traditionally do the same shit every Christmas and always get stressed and somehow expect that it's going to be brilliant. And it's like, no, it isn't, because you're spending thousands of pounds on some day that can't possibly live up to the. Well, no, I mean, I don't. But you know, people do. They spend hundreds. They do spend thousands of pounds. I was adding up. For some friend of mine was telling me what his kid got for Christmas. I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" You know, it's like. My kids are not getting that.
How many Xboxes?
What? It needed an iPad and a PS, whatever number we're up to. Seriously, he's 8. You know, so it's like they spent all this money. I mean, I don't understand how a day can possibly live up to the money that's spent on it. It's like people spending. I think the average spend on a wedding in this country is something like £20,000, or might be 12. Either way, that is a big sum of cash, because traditionally you need presents for the bridesmaids and you need 6 bridesmaids and a maid of honour and you need to buy you need to arrive in a car. It's like, how can you not get stressed when a day... I know people who spent... One of my brother's friends was getting remarried and still paying off the loan from his first wedding, which cost £35,000. And you're like,
Why?
What can the day do? What could it possibly do to deliver on that amount of money spent on it? I don't understand.
I saw Adam Ruins Everything did a good episode on weddings, and just it's all about an obnoxious display of wealth.
Yeah.
It's just an industry, and that's what it's all about. Like, look, money, because it's sort of like emulating those kind of high upper class weddings. Now it's like everyone's going to do one of those upper class weddings where you show off how much money you've got, but when you haven't got all that money, so you're just kind of getting into it.
And it's just mad. And you have all these, like, you must have these things because traditionally the bride must have and the groom must have, and traditionally and the tradition is fuck the tradition.
And the wedding rings, even, and the engagement rings, and all this stuff, and De Beers, the diamonds, and we've touched on it before, like all the made up stuff. Like, people make up traditions all the time, and you kind of, I just wanted to sort of like lay into it a bit more and talk about, someone's like a few hundred years, a few thousand years, I don't know what the timescales are, just gone, oh, these women are getting a bit feisty. What can we do? Should we like hobble their feet? Should we? What should we do to them to keep them under control? And then there's an innovation, and then that turns into tradition. After how many times do you have to do something before it's like, oh, that's now unquestioned because it's in the realm of tradition? When you can get like a company to literally invent a type of card or a wedding tradition and market it, like it becomes a tradition by you market it as a tradition.
Yeah, you just can't label it. It's a tradition now. This is what we do. Now we bind women's feet so they can't walk, or we, it's just we spend hundreds and thousands of pounds on our weddings because it's a tradition, and that's what it's just controlling. Evil. I'm not really into it at all. Can you tell?
Oh dear. Yeah, no, I didn't think we were going to come out so anti-tradition.
Neither did I. I really didn't. Well, but as soon as I had to say it out loud, I was like, no, actually, I hate tradition. Tradition is bullshit. Have I said that already? I'm going to say it again. Yeah. I'm going to get a T-shirt. That's it. It's my new campaign. I didn't realise how vehemently opposed to tradition I am. I think it's just like the antithesis of everything that I am, on the subject of like questioning things, looking at how to improve them. Like everything in my life is on a constant like treadmill of, do I like what I'm doing here? Should I do that? Do I feel well? Am I eating the right things? Am I doing the right things? Am I doing the right things? And then suddenly it's like, oh, well, but traditionally we need to eat till we hurt on this day. It's like, huh? Are there any good ones?
Well, so there are some. Well, I mean, I struggle with like the idea of a musical tradition because there are traditions like classical music, like blues, and then there's jazz, and then there's those sort of types of music that have been around for a long time. I personally sort of dislike because I want to make something new. I don't want to make something that sounds like some stuff that already existed. But then the problem is that no one can, if it doesn't continue a tradition, then nobody has any frame of reference for it. So I think like tradition is useful when it's something you can build on, and sort of it's something that can evolve. Can a tradition evolve?
Should be able to. But
I think people can do stuff, if you sort of set the parameters.
I don't know. You're the one that says the Christmas tree goes up on Christmas Eve.
Well, that's nuts. No, but I think if you like a tradition, like okay, here's the scale. We play in this scale with this type of tuning. You set like it can be a creative constraint in which a lot of innovation can happen. That's the flip side to this. Like not everything needs to be a boundless, infinite thing. Sometimes like here is a tradition of watercolours. Now do something amazing within that. So it's like a constraint.
Yeah, and taking it back to sort of family get-togethers. By all means, let's get together every year, but let's make the getting together be the tradition, not the stressing out over money or how many courses or eating, whatever it is. It's like, so I think creative constraint is a really important part of the creative process, I think.
Yeah. No,
though I never thought, when you were talking, I'd never ever thought of jazz and all these, I think of them as genres, not as traditions, but I suppose they are. They're repeated things, aren't they?
Yeah, well, it's to me, it's like, I am in this world of I choose my constraints.
Ooh.
Like based on what's interesting to me. But if you can refer to a tradition, then the constraints have already been chosen for you and tested by lots of different people, which then kind of gives people a bit more trust in something if they do like it and it is within that tradition.
Now that you've put a tradition label on a thing that I have never ever labelled as a tradition, it's making me think differently. And things like traditionally we have action movies, and now for the first time, we've got an action movie with only 2 white actors and everyone else is black. It's like, that's the creative constraint. So let's have the action movie with the action, but it not be about the colour of the actors. Well, the Panther movie. It's like, it's about the action. It's not, so Christmas is about the getting together with, it should be about going to church. It's like, that's what it's based on, but nobody does that anymore. But it's like, so, if that's what you want Christmas, even I rock up to church sometimes on Christmas Day.
I won't go to a church.
Oh, I don't. Well, because in my family, if I'm in Croatia land, that's what it's all about. It's got nothing, nobody gives anyone any presents. But anyway, but there's still a family gathering. So if the tradition is a family gathering, then you can play with it, so the family gathering becomes more and more inclusive, entertaining, whatever. You can take the genre of your tradition of a movie type or a music type and work out what really matters about it.
Find the essence of something.
Find the essence and the what was the instigator. What was the thing that made us start this tradition or made us...
I think a lot of the time it's technology. It's so like you get musical traditions coming from the development of a new musical instrument that can retain a certain type of tuning. So the harpsichord was a big thing for early Bach, and early classical music became possible. And then there was a lot of exploration around that. Okay, what are the various things you can do with this constraint, which is hard to change by nature of someone having to spend months building one, which is very sort of opposed to now, where you can create a new musical instrument, you can 3D print things or program software plugins and things. You can just create a completely new so there's no sort of real constraints on that type of creativity anymore that used to we're experiencing this phenomenon of accelerating technology, but I think that's also accelerating traditions are kind of getting dropped, or you sort of hold on to them because you're scared that you're going to lose them all quicker than you can create a new one. So I think in my family, maybe the fact, I think we did drop the church tradition mostly, but what do we replace it with? Nothing. Yeah. And then we keep dropping things and replacing them with nothing. And it's like, okay, well, that's probably why people are protective of it.
But distilling the essence of a tradition, I think, should help you understand whether it's worth retaining at all. So if the essence of the tradition is to control a group of people, then we need to sack it off.
Yeah,
it's like we're done. That is
unless
you
like controlling that group of people.
But sorry, I was being too serious then.
You were being.
I was being far too serious for you.
Failed to prick a hole.
What? I am preaching.
Traditions mean different things to different people. So, to the oppressor, the tradition is perfectly good and important, but to the oppressed, it's fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of shouting fuck you into the mic this week. Because last week's episode, I didn't check explicit because we didn't swear at all. So,
really?
This week.
Maybe that's why we don't get like promoted on iTunes, because there's too much swearing. But anyway, fuck you, iTunes.
She didn't mean that. She didn't mean that, Apple, our overlords. Please don't. Please, we're sorry. She's sorry. I will see to her. I'll see about finding a way to calm her down.
Yes. So there are people who control people. Yes. I don't know what that. We see.
No, but different perspective. Different people get different things out of different traditions, and like so you're talking about distilling the essence of the tradition, but then like different people involved in it will see it different ways, see different aspects of it. So someone might think the church bit is the most important. You might think that the coming together is the most important bit, and then you're kind of a bit of a how do you reconcile that?
Then that's I think the other side of some of these traditionally we lock people up for doing that sort of thing. There's also these things that aren't traditions in that sort of ritualistic sense, but they're traditions in the way we behave. So
right, so it's just cultural.
Is that? Is that
it's like sexism, homophobia. Are these traditions? Or are these like long-standing prejudices? Or they're not even necessarily always long-standing. They can have reached mainstream. I don't know.
Well, this is one of the things we talked about after that Mary Beard thing I saw the other week. One of the things she said was that when it comes to men saying misogynistic things, that she said, because she's in her 60s now, she's like, I find these people ridiculous and I think we should laugh at them. And we shouldn't get angry. There's nothing to get angry about. Don't waste your anger. Just ridicule them for being ridiculous.
It's hard when they have the power.
Very hard when they have the power.
It's not,
that's
do anything.
That's the thing. That was what we ended up talking about. It's like, you can say that. That's all. That all sounds brilliant. And I love the fact. See, my brother is really, really good at when somebody's irritating him at going, you are funny with your crazy ideas. And that's part of what makes him a charming person who people like. But he's a big guy who is clever and quick thinking, and he can do. Even with my child, when she wakes up in the morning and goes, Mummy, can I have Bing on at 6? I kind of go, no, we don't watch telly in the morning. Whereas my husband goes, you're funny with your crazy ideas. And there's this sort of like, there is something about being in a relaxed position of not feeling oppressed that lets you go, yeah, you're funny, rather than going, screw you, you can't tell me what to do, which is, and it's very hard to have that reaction when you're not in power. And the other side of that whole thing was like, what Lydia my sister brought up was the fact that much of the language men use, they don't know often, or they can't recognise that they are saying something sexist or misogynistic. And nobody's really teaching them what the alternative way of expressing them is. So getting arsey with somebody who said something just because that's how they've always spoken, and nobody has gone, you do know that it would be much better if you said, I don't know, I can't think of a single example. Do you know what I mean? It's like how do we learn how to speak to each other, to not oppress each other until somebody, Can
we just, is it, and it, yeah, and I'm just like, just to specifically respond to, is it about, can you just like repeat it back to them using better language and hope that they'll be like, I see, yeah. Is that a way? Or,
I don't know, because it also stops flow of conversation,
that's the problem. It's like you kind of want to let someone make their point. If you start like criticising their wrong use of the word there in a sentence, it's like I want to, but it's just
or that sort of like, you talked about reading that book where the guy, the person writing it, that everything he said was like, when he's writing, it was all he and it's like, that is kind of the default, but you understand that that's lazy, don't you, type thing. It's like that's not really giving people the examples that they. So I don't.
Yeah. But and would you say? And that makes me think, if he did start breaking that, it's like, oh, I don't want to be political. And so is it always political to do something that's at odds with tradition? Is that one of the definitions of that word? Like, okay, I'm being political because I don't agree with the traditions.
I don't know. I
So
really.
it's an idea.
It's an interesting question, because the problem I have with them is the fact that they're so unbending. The whole point.
Exactly.
You use it to beat people up with like a stick to go.
You sort of varnish an innovation, don't you? You go, okay, this is finished now.
Yeah, because this is done. It's baked. This is how it is forever and ever, and nothing is how it is forever and ever. And that's just. And so with many traditions, you have to actually create big societal change to change them, and therefore they're political. It's political to be anti a particular tradition. Traditionally, we have only had statues of men in Parliament Square. Well, we've just got the first statue of a woman in Parliament Square. We've got, it's like you've got to break these traditions, and the only way to do it is through pressure. Even if it is, look, Dad, can we please put up the Christmas tree on the 1st of December? Even that requires a type of lobbying, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You've got to get everybody on board.
Write an environmental impact report.
Get all your siblings on board. Come on, let's do this.
We can do it this year. We can get the Christmas tree up when we can still enjoy it.
We can persuade him. Come on, if we all apply pressure, it's that back to that Simpsons. Can we have a pool, Dad? Can we have a pool, Dad? It's like, let's just keep applying the pressure until. So lobbying. You have to lobby to get rid of traditions.
Yeah. Another subject I had on my list was, isn't it interesting, like traditional costume is a thing versus fashion.
Yes.
How does that? When do you start having fashions instead of costumes? Or did it used to just be that like information flow was so much slower that a weird random fashion could become a traditional costume? I don't know.
But is that? But no. I think that's interesting. I think what I see in my head is that sort of really fancy dress that the villagers put on twice a year because there's it's the Saints' Day for the village, so they all come out and dance and do the traditional dance and have the day off. But they couldn't afford a new dress every year, so you've got to make this one dress last 50 years because you probably spent a really disproportionate amount of money having this one posh frock. So
again, it's sort of like quasi-technological type thing.
It is,
if something's hard to kind of do or expensive, then you kind of hold on to it, don't you?
I mean, it certainly has an economic. So I mean, I think if you were going through a thing of analysing tradition, let's examine this tradition. Does it have an economic impact? Does it have a oppression impact? Does it have? And there's these certain things that if it has those, then you need to perhaps question its right to be. And I'm sure, your father's tradition of the Christmas Eve Christmas tree is to do with like, oh God, I just need to get it on the, so many things to do. Well, if we do it Christmas Eve, then I know that's the day I'm doing it, and I don't have to worry.
I wonder where it came from. Like, I wonder how that. It's all this 12 days of Christmas thing. I think was the idea. Yeah. Christmas is just from the 25th to the 12th. That's when Christmas is. Well, it's not, is it?
Well, in the Catholic lot, there's quite a lot of abstinence leading up to Christmas. There's fasting on Christmas Eve itself. There's, it's.
I did not know that.
There's a bit because, you kind of.
I have been raised a Catholic,
but it was maybe not quite a lot. But there is a few saints' days and a few. Well, my lot, everyone fasts on Christmas Eve. And then go to midnight mass and come out of midnight mass and then stuff their faces.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it?
Like, eat pig.
Delicious pig. We're going to do another question for the interwebs. But first, I've thought of one which was, Ivanka, if you could Is there one tradition that you would hate to lose?
No.
Okay.
So I bought into the tradition of getting married. Is that a tradition?
Yes.
So I wouldn't like that to disappear, especially after so many people have just, still don't have the right to get married, but, just got the right to get married, and suddenly everyone goes, yeah, actually marriage is bullshit. As previously described, I think it's a very nice ritual tradition thing to stand up and make a promise. So I wouldn't like to see that disappearing. But then the essence of it is that sort of promise. No, I am serious. I'm going to try really hard. And even if you get poorly, I will look after you, So the essence of it, I think, is positive.
And with that, I assume you're talking about very expensive weddings as well.
Yeah, I think everybody should spend at least £50,000. As mine didn't cost that. Nick's whole, I got Nick's whole outfit in Snoopers Paradise in Brighton for 60 quid.
What?
Including an Oswald Boateng shirt secondhand.
It's possible.
Well, you just got to know where to look.
To be honest, I'm trying to kind of like absorb some of Sharon's traditions that I don't know if it's just that they're different, but they seem nicer. Like instead of like, this is the date, you give people a present on this date. I'm trying to change it to I give people a present when I see them. I haven't really got a good tradition. I don't think there's any tradition that I would like to keep. They're all rubbish.
They are rubbish. Right.
Thanks for listening to the podcast, everybody.
We're finishing.
Yeah, we got finished.
Okay, cool.
It's coming in.
It's coming. He's just tried to stay away, but he's just come in.
Oh, dear.
He's got to go in a minute, he says. So, yes, thanks, everybody, for listening to our podcast. If you would like to praise us, then please do some stars on Apple Podcasts. That would be nice. Please.
Find our website, grandpodcast.com. Find our Twitter, Podcast Grand. Find our Instagram, Grand Podcast. Where can we find you, Ivanka?
You can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
Ooh, good username.
Yeah.
Only 5 characters. You must have been an early adopter.
I was.
So was I. I couldn't get Michael. You can find me at michaelforestmusic.com. Don't go to michaelforest.com. It's lame. Go to michaelforestmusic.com. Find me. And yeah, thanks very much for listening. I think that's everything.
Yes.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much.
Let's play us out, Michael. Bye.
Bye.